Good evening, ladies. How are you? Oh, having a little issue. So here's the thing. I have changed the view because when I was obviously using Streamlabs, I've gone to a portrait mode, which I've used for the first time. I've just realised that I'm on the wrong. Anyway, we'll cope. It needs to switch my view. Anyway, all the learning curve. So basically, what was happening was when I was repurposing these videos, the let me just check I'm live. Let me just check I'm there. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh wow, that's close up. Hi Hillary. So when I was repurposing these videos from what I was doing on Monday nights, the slides, because I was doing it like that way, landscape, the slides looked really small and you couldn't read them, and I was like really small down here, so I just think it wasn't creating much of a connection. So I've decided to do it portrait, which looks weird. So I've still done slides, which is amazing. So we're trying it out for the first time. So bear with. Okay. Oh, let me turn myself down. There we go. Okay. So what we're talking about tonight, let me just add my slides. I mean, I'm digging this quite a lot. Okay. This is much better. So I'm not going to keep it on the slides. I'm just going to give the slide and then we know what we're doing. Now let's get my camera angle right so I'm not like this. Okay, so we're talking about tonight how to be more focused and disciplined. And why are we talking about this? Well, we're talking about this because, and it's important because let's face it, let me just take this off. We know what we're talking about. Success is really, really down to our ability to be focused and disciplined. And I hate, I wish it wasn't the case. I wish it wasn't the case, but it bloody is. And discipline has not been something that comes naturally to me. I'm a much more I have been or was a much more sort of fly by the seat of my pants, let me just go with the flow. And I'm still very much like that in a lot of ways. But what I realized was if I was going to create any form of success in anything, that you can apply this to pretty much everything. When we start to experience what it feels like to feel discipline and the results of discipline, the pros far outweigh the cons. And what really turned the corner for me was when I sort of did my body transformation and I really applied this rule to my fitness and my my fitness and my wellness and my exercise. But really, what I realized when I did that, I was like, oh my god, I can be disciplined. Like I can do this, and that didn't happen. I just decided to commit and I did it. That's taken years and years and years of me trying to commit and then falling off a little bit, or going on the wagon, for want of a better phrase, and falling off it and getting back on. And that is what I've realized is that discipline is. But it's important because if we're going to achieve anything, we have got to establish some level of discipline and focus. Now, if you're neurodivergent and ADHD, there are going to be different ways in which I just want to address that, because obviously it's very important that there are people with different abilities in focusing and in discipline. And so you've got to understand yourself and know yourself. And we're going to get to that bit in a bit later on. And there used to be this phrase that I used to absolutely hate, and it was, how we do one thing is how we do everything. And the reason that it triggered me so much is because how I did one thing was very undisciplined and very unfocused. And so I was like, God, if how I do that is how I'm going to do everything, I'm never going to achieve it. And that was generally why it triggered me so much. And I had to look at, but I've always said we've got to take responsibility for our buttons. Like, it's your button, own it, look into it. So I'm going to look at that in a minute. So it's important because we have to achieve some level of it in order to succeed in the things that we want to succeed in. So that's why it's important. I also now want to talk about, like, what's the optimal philosophy here? What's the optimal mindset? What is the thing that we're heading for when we talk about this subject. For me, the massive shift was discipline is self-love. Think about that. Everything that you desire, everything that is on the end of the line of your evolution, everything that you desire is for you. It's good for you. It might, it might mean, better health, more toned, stronger. It might mean a more healthy bank balance. It might mean, more travel. It might, all the things that we talk about when we want more of. I want more experience, more love, more all things. Everything that, even if it's more love, even if it's more intimacy in your relationship, there is going to have to be some action taken, and you've got to be consistent with it. And the thing is that when we look at this, and let's talk about it relationship wise, if you're consistently an arse to somebody, it has its impact over time. And so when we look at that, if we flip the lid on, or flip the coin on looking at the other side, is that we can be very consistent at not doing something. Is that consistency? Of course it is. So it's not that you can't be consistent. It's that you're not directing that consistency in the direction of your desire. We can consistently talk bad to ourselves. We can consistently let ourselves down. We can consistently not do what we say we're going to do. That's being consistent in a roundabout way. We're still doing something on a consistent basis. It's just that thing is taking us away from our desires and our goals rather than towards them. And why do we do that? Well, I'm going to get to that in a minute. I don't want to jump ahead of myself. So discipline is self-love, because if I love myself, so if we think about, I think health is a really good example here. If I can commit to eating really well Monday to Friday, having my weekends off, if I commit to that, that's for my ultimate good. It means, 80% of the time I am acting in alignment with the thing that I desire. So when we think about that, we're loving ourselves. When we think about our children, we don't give our children everything that they want. I said to William the other day, I was like, he asked me for something, and I said no, because I think it was like a sausage roll, and it was like 8:30 in the morning. And I was like, no, because it's 8:30 in the morning. You don't have, who has a sausage roll at 8:30 in the morning? It's not a healthy thing to do. And I just said to him, listen, I said, I love you like 1 billion trillion %. I want to give you everything. I want to say yes to you every single time I say you ask me for something. But if I was to do that, I wouldn't be loving you. I'd just be giving you everything that you want. That's not love, because that's not healthy. My vision for you is health, is wellness, is the happiness, is joy. So sometimes what I say you can and can't do is in alignment with that, and you might disagree. And I was like, do you understand? He was like, yeah, I understand. I was like, perfect. So we've got to think that if we're like that with our children, we say no to our children because we are protecting them. We have their highest, good in mind. Are we doing that for ourselves? Maybe not. So discipline is self-love. The second thing is, what we've got to really, the mindset we've really got to get to is no one's perfect. Nobody is perfect 100% of the time. Are there people that are more inclined to be more disciplined than others? 100%. And that very much depends on conditioning, how you were brought up, what was modeled to you. My brain's saying, what did William say? William was like, yeah, he got it. He got it. I was like, I'd love to say yes to you every minute of every day. Every time you ask me for anything, I want to say yes to you because I love you and I want you to be happy. But I also have a responsibility of care for your greater good, because you're only seeing the decision now. You're not seeing the impact of that decision down the line. I explained it to him. He was okay with it. He got it. So we've got to understand that no one is perfect. No one is, there are people that are more inclined to be disciplined. There are people that are better at focusing. That's okay. But nobody is perfect 100% of the time. So our mindset around it is that this is about self-love. This is about me doing what's right for me in the long term, not just in the short term. So when we're talking about businesses, when we're growing our business, me posting 2 reels a day or posting 4 pieces of content a day over my social media might not get me any, instant gratification. In fact, it doesn't most of the time. It doesn't get me instant gratification. But when I'm now in a position where, my time hop from 4, 5, 6 years ago is me doing this. And so when I'm out and about, or when, in fact, I met somebody randomly, this was a local person who I didn't know. And I was on the train back from a night out with the girls, and he knew my friends, and I didn't really know him. But he went, "Oh, you're Charlotte, you're the businesswoman." And I was like, yeah, I am. And I was like, isn't that weird? Because I've been doing it for so long. I mean, it's not a massive amount of time, but I've been doing it for a decade. I've been doing it for so long that I've been consistently inconsistent most of the time, I'll be honest. And it's, I love the fact that I'm talking about this. It's the old me would have laughed out loud at me talking about this. But I've kept going, and I've kept trying, and I've kept moving towards it. It might have gone like this, and that's okay. So my mindset is, this is about self-love for me. I'm not perfect. I don't expect myself to be. We've got to remember that when we're looking at other people, we're seeing their show reel. We're not seeing the grind behind the scenes. We're just seeing the thing that they project on social media. So when you're looking at your business and you think, oh, they're so much further ahead than me, you don't know how long they've been doing it. You don't know what they've been through to get there. So when we look at, and the reason that I'm bringing this up to do with comparison is because judgment, the judge, our judge saboteur, our hyperachiever saboteur, has everything to do with the reason why we find lack of focus and lack of discipline so painful, is because there is so much shame and guilt that we attach to it, and that is all saboteur, right? So we've got to remember that. The judge is ever present. If ever you are trying to move in the direction of your desires and your goals, the judge will be ever present. You are trying to do something that is not your normal. So if you constantly criticized yourself your entire life, which is you being super consistent at criticizing yourself, so you are super consistent. Another thing, of example, you get up and brush your teeth every single day, without fail, you brush your teeth. You can be consistent. So it is not that you have a lack of consistency. It is just you have a challenge being consistent in the direction of the things that you desire. Because why? We're going to address that in a minute. Okay. So, what have I missed? I haven't missed anything. So let's look at my step-by-step. Just let me go back to my slides. Okay, so step 1. There's 6 steps to this, right? Step 1 is decide what's important and why. Now, we've talked many times. I've talked many times. You've heard many people talk many times about your why. And I think that, this was something that was talked about on a daily in my first business. It's not something that I hear as much nowadays, but it's something that I have to come back to every single time. And what I mean by that is, when I'm working towards something, the thing that drives the discipline, and let's just talk about motivation a minute. Motivation is wavering. We cannot rely on motivation. So discipline is a beautiful replacement for motivation, because motivation has nothing, discipline has nothing to do with motivation. Discipline is doing it anyway, motivated or not. And depending on your human design, if you've got a defined ego, heart, will center, which is the little triangle up from your emotional solar plexus. So, that one, go have a look at your chart. If you've got a defined emotion, an undefined ego, which most people have, only 7% of the world have defined egos. I live with 3 of them. Then you don't necessarily have consistent access to motivation. So my motivation comes in waves. I have a completely open ego center. So it comes in waves. So what I used to do with that, my experience before, was I would feel super motivated and be like, yeah. And I'd be doing it, and I'd be going. And then I used to explain it before I was into human design. I used to explain it. I was like, I just don't get it. Like, I will be on it, literally like feeling on top of the world. Like, oh my God, I've nailed this. This is just who I am now. Especially when it came to my fitness, I'd be like, oh my God, this is just who I am. I'm like one of those people that goes to the gym 3 times a week or 4 times a week. And then on a knife's edge, it would just go. And I would wake up the next day and I'd be like, I don't want to go. There was not an ounce. In fact, I'm in one of those moments at the moment. There was not an ounce of me that wanted to go. So what do we do there? So I used to judge, hyperachiever. Remember, I've got judge, hyperachiever, and avoider as my top 3 saboteurs. That's difficult when it's challenging when you're thinking about, discipline and focus, right? So what I used to do was I would then beat myself up. I'd then say, oh my God, like, why can't you just stick at something? You're never going to be successful. You're never going to get, you're never going to be in the physical shape that you want to be in. Like, it's just a pipe dream. Who are you to just, blah, 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 and all this crap, just, what would that do? That would lower my energy. That would make me feel like shit. That would bring me to a place that's I'm much less likely to be moving out of that place. And you're doing it to yourself. We are doing it to ourselves. I've just had that Radiohead song come in my head. Do it to yourself. That one you do. So nowadays I don't do that. I recognize, oh, it's gone. Okay, that's cool. Let's go and do something else. It'll be back in a bit. And I don't beat myself up about it. That has taken, all my PQ study, my PQ practice, my PQ reps I do every day. That has helped with that because that's what the program's about. That's what that operating system is for. That's why I love it. So we've got to decide what is important. Is this really important to me? So is your business and the success of your business really important to you? Why? Why is it really important? And what are 3 things that you need to really get better at focusing getting better at focusing on and becoming more disciplined? What are 3 things that you need to be more disciplined in order to make that a success? Because it's important. Because when you've decided what's important, 1 to 3 things that you're going to commit to getting more disciplined around, regardless of the resistance, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Like, when you're aware of those things, it's like, no, so I've just got to do these 3 things. Everything else can sort of fall off. Everything else we can be a little bit more undisciplined around. But what are the needle movers? What are the things that are going to, so for me, it would be posting consistent value on social media. It would be making connections with people. It would be developing myself. So my skill set constantly evolves, constantly improves. I get better and better at what I do. They're the 3 things that move the needle for me. So I'm going to be disciplined about those 3 things. I'm not going to be perfect, but they're going to be the things that I'm going to go, right, I'm going to focus my energy here. Because at the end of the day, if we're just scattered and we have this belief system that, oh, I'm not disciplined, therefore I can't be disciplined, which is absolute rubbish. Because like I said, you brush your teeth every day. You take the kids to school every day. You don't just wake up and go, oh, I can't be arsed and don't take them. You might do, but so you are disciplined. You're just not focusing that discipline in an area that is for your higher good. And when we think about why we don't do that, it's because we have there is fear, there is judgment, there is conditioning attached to that. So for example, if it's about being more financially successful, about being successful full stop in business or whatever, and we've got issues around money, or we've got issues around success, or we've got judgment around those things, then we're going to not put our full energy into that, because we might actually win. We might become successful. And if you've been around for me long enough, you remember did a program called What If It Works, which was my theory that the fear of success is much more potent than fear of failure. So we've got to decide what's important. Just come back to the point. We've got to decide what's important, pick 1 to 3 things, and deal with those 3 things. And that's in the next step. So hang on a minute. So step 2 is be honest. Address the resistance, write it down, what saboteurs are present. So what this is here is we're addressing, be honest. Be honest with yourself. Don't lie. Don't make excuses. Be honest. Like, be vulnerable. So for example, if it's your business. And part of that thing is, one of your things is visibility. Okay, I need to be visible. I've got to show up. And if that's it, and you're not being disciplined around it, why aren't you? Look at it. What saboteurs are showing up here? Judge, avoider, hyperachiever, hello. Victim, hypervigilant. What's showing up? And why is it? And what I mean by that, well, you know what I mean, you know what why means, but what I mean by that is, what fears, what beliefs do you have that you're frightened to move towards? There is something about the end result of discipline there. So, for example, if it was fitness and weight, let's say that you would be worried that, I mean, this is a random example, but this happened with people I had conversations with when I was doing All Woman Wellness. What if I lose all the weight? What if I get really slim and really happy and my husband feels threatened? What if I get really wealthy and really successful and my friends don't like me anymore? This is all the fear of success stuff. We have to look at the three things that are important. Then we have to address and face, what are my fears around this? What are my beliefs around this? What are my limitations around this? And what saboteurs are showing up? We've got to be honest, because unless we get it out of our head, it swims around. Unless we get it out, because when you write it down in front of you and you go, oh, that's interesting. That's rubbish. In our head, it feels very, very real. On a piece of paper in front of you, you read it and you go, I could talk myself out of that one pretty easily. Or you could go, wow, that doesn't feel good. And then you do the work. It's not a walk in the park all the time. It's never going to be. So it really is about you addressing, being honest with, processing, and alchemizing those moments and knowing that they're there. Because what I'm saying to you is that we don't just like look at it, write it down and go, oh, that's that process. It's like, right, I am aware that this is in the back seat, and I can feel it and I'm aware of it. So it might be the fear of success. It might be the fear of being judged. Okay, it's here. And so for me, it was very much the fear of being judged. So for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to be judged. Can I get used to that? Can I settle my nervous system around the fact that I'm going to be judged? People are going to say things that aren't very nice, or that aren't very supportive, or that are a bit bitchy, or that are a bit derogatory. They're going to say things like that, and I'm not going to be able to hear them. And I'm not going to know who said these things and why they've said them, and it doesn't matter. Because what matters to me is this. Refer back to the three things. What matters to me is the outcome of this. And so I can't allow those fears to get in the way of this task right now. Because what happens is we go to do the thing. It's not that we're not disciplined. I'm going to keep repeating that. It's not that we're not focused or we have the inability to focus. It's that our saboteurs and our fears and our limitation and our beliefs halt us and make us avoid doing the thing. And then we call ourselves not disciplined. And it's just not true. Okay. Okay, next. Step 3. Define what discipline and focus means to you. Let's just, nobody's going into the Oxford Dictionary and looking up disciplined and then going, it has to be that, or I failed. Like that's not, we're humans, we get to do what we want, right? So you've got to decide what discipline means to you. And that could start really, really small. You could be like, I got out of bed 15 minutes earlier today. I'm going to do the same tomorrow. I'm going to get out of bed 15 minutes earlier than I normally do tomorrow. And you do it. And you say, I'm going to commit to do that 4 times a week or 3 times a week. You could even start with twice a week. Mondays and Wednesdays, I'm going to get up 15 minutes earlier. Then Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, I'm going to get 50. Do you see what I mean? Decide what it means to you. Discipline could just be, I said I would do this twice a week and I'm doing it. Doesn't have to be, if you start running That's why, Couch to 5K works really, really well. And loads of people have succeeded at doing it. It's because it takes it little step by step. It doesn't ask you to run the London Marathon on day one. It's the same analogy. Discipline is built. It's something that's acquired. It's a skill set that you learn. It's not something that you were bestowed, you were bestowed at birth, or you weren't. You got the discipline pill and you didn't. Yes, culture has a lot to play. Yes, conditioning. Yes, how you were brought up has a lot to play. Like, my mom's really disciplined. And, when I was younger, I rebelled against that. The impact of that over time has had a positive effect on me. But in the beginning, I rebelled at it. I'm not doing that. In fact, the other day we had a sort of petty little funny argument. She'd brought something round in a magazine that she wanted William to do, and she just wouldn't let it lie. She kept showing it me and opening it, and I was just like, I laughed. I was like, God, I'm feeling so much resistance just because you're telling me to do it. Because the rebel will always be there, right? So we've got to look at your, like, what it means to you. What does focus mean to you? Focus doesn't mean being able to sit and do something for 5-6 hours for you. It might be, I can do this for half an hour. That's focus. I've been really focused for the last half an hour. I got recommended by a friend. It's something called Clockify. It's just a timer, but you put your sort of tasks in, and then when you start the task, you start the timer. And my God, you don't get distracted when that timer is clicking, because the time is clicking. So you're not going to get distracted scrolling on your phone because the time is clicking. So you'd set it for like half an hour, and then you honestly, it makes such a difference. So it's called Clockify. I will share a link to it in the group. But use tools like, what does focus mean to you? Well, I'm going to focus on this for 25 minutes. I'm going to focus on this for 25 minutes. And then that's me done. That's your definition of it. Start to make it work for you. Start to use those words in your vocabulary. Because then it becomes part of your identity. People don't look at me and go, oh, she's not disciplined. She doesn't do 6 hours a day. She only does 4. No one says that, because no one knows. It is completely and utterly defined by you. And so define it in a way that works for you and start to own it. I'm really disciplined. I do that for 10 minutes every day. The PQ app reps, it's 15 minutes a day in total. It's 3 minutes 4 times a day. I'm just checking the maths. But I'm disciplined at that. Define it. Define it how it means to you, because who's defining it and whose definition are you living by that you're not living up to, is my point. Okay, next one. 4. Take the path of least resistance, eat the frog. Now, Eat the Frog is a book that I read a long time ago. Some of you may have read it. And it was about just eat the frog, eat the first bit, like do the bit that you really don't want to do and just get it out of the way. That was basically the principle. The path of least resistance, I find a nicer way to say it. So when we're talking about path of least resistance, take the thing that you need to do. So one of the 3 things we talked about at the top of this live stream was, what's the 3 things that are important to you that are going to move the needle towards the thing that you want to do? The 3 things that you want to channel your energy into becoming more disciplined around, and whatever discipline is defined by you, you're just going to be more of it. And so if you take those 3 things and you decide, right, what is the path of least resistance into this? So it might be, so let's say you want to go for a run every morning. Let's say you want to be more visible on your social media. The run every morning might be, I'm just going to wake up 15 minutes earlier, because I'd have to wake up 15 minutes earlier in order to get the kit on, in order to leave the house to be back on time. So let's just start with getting up 15 minutes earlier. That's a lot less resistant than get up, get trainers on, get gym kit on, run a mile. That's a lot of resistance there. In fact, I'm repelling against that. I hate running. But pick the path of least resistance. Pick the thing that's going to ease you in to that process. So if it's visibility on your social media, don't go, right, I have to go live every day for 365 days like I did. You might go, I'm going to share a quote. I'm going to share a picture of myself with a quote. I'm going to do something that has least resistance, but it is in alignment with becoming more disciplined. It is going to be part of the 3 things that are really important to me that are going to move the needle towards the thing that I'm going for. And it's the thing that I can find I've got the least resistance to doing. But here's the really important thing. When you've done it, and this is one of the points, but I'm skipping, but I'll mention it here too, is to celebrate that. I did that. What can I do now? What's next? What's the next right move? That's to quote Oprah. What is my next right move? The next right move would be just celebrating it, would be saying nice things to yourself, would be being kind to yourself. Because this is what can happen, right? Let's say we do the thing, we do the little thing. The 2 neuro pathway possibilities are, well done. I'm so proud of myself for doing that. Go me. The other fork in the road, which is if it's your habit, you didn't do enough. Why didn't you do more? You said you'd do 15 minutes. You only did 14. And then we go, oh, and then it takes us off down that route, back away from the thing that we want. And so the next right move could just be that positive reinforcement, that self-validation. Go me. I did it, right? Okay. Next slide. Don't allow the judge to take over. This is so key. Our judge is so ever present throughout anything when we're trying to move in any direction of doing things. Halfway to is me. Well, I wasn't thinking of you, Nestama, when I said it. I'm joking. Yeah, that it wasn't good enough. Yeah, I mean, I know this is something we've talked about. So you've got to think about this next thing. Don't let the judge take over. And what I mean by that is don't become passive to the judge. It's always with you. He, she is always with you. Expect him. Expect her. There's potential for me to judge myself here. I'm not going to do it. There's a potential for me to judge this situation. I'm not going to do it in a negative way. There's a potential here for me to judge this outcome. I'm not going to do it. Preempt it. You have got to be hyper aware when you're moving in the direction of the thing that you desire, because it's riddled with judgment. It wasn't good enough. I'm not good enough. That person looked at me, that person didn't respond in the way that I wanted to. That didn't work. That launched it. Whatever it is, that video only got 2 likes and it took me half an hour to do. All these things. I've been going to the gym for 3 weeks and I can't see any difference. I'm just sore. The judge is ever present. It's okay. Completely normal. But you've got to be aware of it. You've got to own him or her. You've got to say to her, mine's judgy McJudge face. Yeah, I know you could potentially say that I could have done more there, but I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, I'm really proud of myself for what I did do, and I'm going to do 1 minute more tomorrow. You've got to, this is the work. It's not just knowing it. Like, it's one thing to know what to do. It's another thing to do what you know. Like, that is the key to success. It's the key to growth. It's the key to expansion. It's the key to everything. You've got to do what you know. It's no good just knowing it. In fact, it's worse. I always say, like, I got into personal development 10, 12 years ago. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. But it's also sometimes been the worst thing because I can't unknow the things I know. You can't unknow them. And so when you can't unknow them, it's like, shit, like, I've really got to do this. Like, I've really got to do this. And that is something that happens to me on a weekly basis. Like, oh my God, no, I actually have to do this. Like, I'm actually going to do this because it matters. And I know this now, and I know that this is possible. And so I've got to keep going because I know it's possible. But do you think some days, have there been times where I just wish that I'd had a normal life with a 9 to 5 and a regular paycheck? Yes, of course there is. But my eyes have been open to this other world, and there's no going back for me. There's just no going back. And so if there's no going back, and if that's the way you feel, then what we're going to do about it? We've got to use the tools that we know. We've got to not allow this constant judge to be overpowering the situation and taking control of the situation. And that is a moment-to-moment awareness. And, you're not going to get it right every time. You're going to get massively hijacked sometimes. And that's okay. completely normal. You're a human being. That's what we're designed to do. Our point here is to grow through that. If you are like, I believe, like an expression of your human experiences to add to the greater good of humanity and human experience, then this is my challenges. This is what I've agreed to. I've agreed to this challenge because I've agreed to move through it so I can show people that it's possible. That's my belief, right? Okay. Step 6. You know what the last one is. Celebrate the shit out of everything. You know, I mean, this is quite a British thing. We're not very good at self-praise. We're not very good at whooping ourselves, but we've got to get better at it. Like, go you. Like, go me. Go me. Go me should be a daily thing that you should be saying. It's 2 little words. Go me. Go me, I did that. Go me, I got up 15 minutes earlier. Go me, I went to the gym today. Go me, I got 3 out of the 4 pieces of content that I said I was going to get out. Go me. You know, if you got 3 things out of 4 done, you did most of it. You didn't do all of it. That's okay. You're a human. You're a human. Sometimes we overcommit. Sometimes we miss, me especially, and that Clockify actually really helped with this. I used to really underestimate how much time it took me to do things. So I'd like put half an hour for reels. Yeah, all right. Who are you kidding, right? It'd take me at least an hour and a half to do that, at least. So we've got to, so using a tool like that and really getting acquainted with how long it takes you to do things and what you're committing to. Do you overcommit? Do you have high expectations that you're never going to meet? And it's not about lowering your expectations yourself. It's like, what's the real exactly, how can I be more real here? How can I say, okay, am I going to, with everything else I've got on today, with all the distractions and the commitments, the other things that I've got, how much actual time have I got to commit to this today? It's not 5 hours, it's actually 2. So if I've only got 2 hours, how can I get those 3 things done? How can I move the needle on those 3 things that we talked about at the beginning of the call? How can I do things that are associated to that? Because another thing that happens is, I'm wagging my finger a lot, another thing that happens is that you think you had 4 hours, you actually had 2. And then instead of focusing on the 3 really important things, you focus on the needle movers, you fill that 2 hours with things that were less productive, less important, less needle moving because they were easier. And then you go, oh, I didn't get that done. And then you beat yourself up. So this is why the first point is really important. Decide what's important and why. Because if you've only got 2 hours when you think you had 4, then what's the most important thing that needs doing in that 2 hours? And usually that's the scariest thing. Usually it's the thing with most resistance, because if it wasn't, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So it's recognizing that the things that move the needle are usually the things that are going to expand you the most. They're usually going to be the things that are going to move you towards your goal. They are going to be that. And so the step 2, I can't remember which step it was. The step 2 is be honest with yourself. Deal with, face, look at, process, alchemize, all the other words I can think to say about it. The things that are causing the resistance about you doing the thing that you want to do. That becoming more disciplined in the area that you really want to become more disciplined in. Because like I said, it's not that you're not disciplined, you brush your teeth every day. It's just that the things that you want to be disciplined on, that you find it difficult to be disciplined on, are the things that carry the most judgment, the things that carry the most fear, the most limiting beliefs, all the things that cause resistance. Does that make sense? Okay. So, I find this so hard. A friend of over 40 years said she's always been in awe of me, which is lovely, but I thought that's ridiculous. Okay, great point, Hillary, right? How we view ourselves and how we are viewed, 2 very different things. I say it a lot to my clients, like, I wish you could see you through the eyes that I see you. I wish you could see you through my eyes. Like, and you know, when you care for people and you see their beautifulness and their brilliantness and their brilliantness, not a word, their brilliance, there we go. When you see the things that that come so naturally to them that they don't even think it's a thing. And that, you know, when we, just to bring it to human design, you're like, when you look at your defined centers in your human design, that's the thing that you just do, that you just have access to, that people feel from just being in your presence. And you are like, and you don't understand why all people aren't like that. So with my defined emotional center, most of the people that come to me as clients have undefined emotional centers. Most of them have undefined head, undefined ajnas, and the thing that they come to me for comes easy to me. Processing emotion, talking about emotion comes easy to me because I have access to that. And so when people say, oh God, you're so good at that, I used to go, well, am I? Because I didn't really understand it. Now I go, yeah, I know I am, but this is why. This is one of the gifts of human design for me, is like, it really gives you permission to own your strengths and your wisdom in all areas, right? So overall, just to round up, the overarching point here that I really want you to take home is that you are a disciplined person. But you have to define what discipline means to you. You have to define what is the most important things that you need to develop your discipline in. And those things are usually the things that are going to move the needle in your life. You know, health, relationships, business, money, whatever it is. But they are usually going to have the most conditioning attached to it. And so it's your job and your role to be honest with yourself, face those things, process them, alchemize them, and move anyway. Being aware consistently of your saboteurs, consistently of your judge, consistently of the conditioning that exists in those areas for you, and taking very small steps, taking the path of least resistance, moving slowly and praising yourself every single time you move. Focusing on the go me, not the why didn't you do it? Because you have a choice. You have a choice in every single moment, and your success is the compound effect of those moment to moment things. I said this in another live. I'm going to say it again. We change in degrees. Yes, there are quantum leaps. Yes, we can have these leaps in moments, but most of the time it's in degrees. Most of the time and think about that. If you think about time, and I'll finish on this, how quickly did last year go? And we go, oh my God, it went so quickly. It's because the time moved on one day at a time, one day at a time, one day at a time. And the compound effect of those days is a year. The compound effect of your mindset is the decisions you make in every single moment to think differently. The compound effect of your emotional state is the emotions that you choose to hide, not process, squash down. The compound effect of those results in how you feel. Yes, more go me, less screw me. I love that. I will end on that. What a brilliant place to end. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that served you. I will see you next week for next week's live training. And if you've got any questions, feel free to comment. If you're watching this on the replay and you've got any questions, wherever you are and whatever you're watching it on, tag me, ask the question below, and I will be sure to answer you as soon as I can. Thank you for being here. Just remember, you're a human. You're wonderful as you are. We're all here to grow. We're all here to move through things. And I'm here to help you do it. So I'll see you soon. Take care.